Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it after 40, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are speaking with Stephen Clausnitzer. Stephen is the CEO and co-founder of Forever Labs, where they store stem cells so you can live a longer and healthier life. Stephen is also an avid supporter of young entrepreneurs, helping them in a variety of ways. Prior to Forever Labs, Stephen spent 15 years mentoring and developing top talent at Fortune 500 companies, including American Express and Wolters Kluwer. Stephen has extensive experience in strategic growth, commercialization, and team leadership. I'm really excited to learn more. Stephen, thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Please, could you tell us a little bit more about your story and getting to where you are today?
Sure. I don't know how far back you want me to go.
Whatever's relevant.
I think it's always good and proper to point out some of the things that were outside of your control that were really fortunate, right? I was born in the United States, very fortunate. I was born to a great family, very fortunate.
Yes.
My grandfathers on both sides of my family, on the Clausnitzer side and the Ramirez side, were both entrepreneurs. They both started their own businesses. So I feel very fortunate to have had that. Mm-hmm. And I think that we as human beings are often products of what we see is capable, right? If you grow up and your father or mother was a concert pianist, well, that just seems normal to you as a child. You're just like, okay, anyone can be a concert pianist, right? I grew up and my grandfathers were both entrepreneurs and started their own businesses. And I saw them employ other people and strive to do big things, right? And so to me, it just seemed like that's what people can do if they want to do. It seemed very approachable. And so a big part of my story is being fortunate enough to have been born with these great examples. I think I always knew I wanted to start my own business. I didn't know what it was going to be. I think at first I thought restaurants. And because of that, after college, I managed a restaurant for a while. And then I saw that all the people that seemed to be having the most fun in the restaurant, though, were these sales reps. I would come in and dine and wine and dine people. And I still didn't know what kind of business I wanted to start. I didn't want it to be a restaurant because I met this wonderful woman. We fell in love. We got married. And when everyone else is out celebrating, you're running a restaurant and you don't have much of a personal life. And so I realized that it wasn't a restaurant. Being a restaurateur wasn't in my future. I applied to work at a company called Cisco, which is a food distribution company in sales. Because again, I saw all these people seem to live pretty good lives in sales and it's almost like you work for another company, but you are kind of an entrepreneur in the sense that you control your schedule.
Best of both worlds kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of structure from the corporate entity, but you can go out there and forge your own path. So I did that. I did well there. I was recruited away from that company by American Express, and I worked there in a direct sales role. I had a lot of success there. Went over to Wolters Kluwer, a company which is in software sales, because I wanted to learn software sales. I was in the finance sector with American Express, wanted to go learn software, worked for Wolters Kluwer for a very short amount of time, but had a good amount of success there too. And then my best friend, and this is another piece of, maybe I created my own luck here, but I would say surround yourself with talented people. My best friend's a medical physicist. He spent his, now at this point, 20 plus years, studying mesenchymal stem cells and treating various neuropathologies. Yeah. And one day he reached out to me and we were talking about another project we were working on. And his name is Mark Katakowski, started telling me about this research he was doing where he was taking young stem cells from young mice and treating older mice that have strokes to get them to heal. And he was having great success, but he started seeing that, and these mice are genetically matched. So it'd be like young Jolie giving older Jolie, stem cells. He started seeing that these mice that got the younger to old stem cells were actually not just recovering faster with the stroke, but living healthier afterwards. So he became convinced that having access to your own young stem cells would be beneficial later in life.
Interesting.
So by the end of this conversation that we're having, really just randomly, both of us were like, gosh, let's do this. I want to store my stem cells.
Yeah.
And the reason being, he's telling me all of this for the first time about how he was telling me that as you age, you lose these cells. They're called mesenchymal stem cells. You lose them in both number and function. So the older you get, the less of them you have, and the worse they get because of like DNA replication errors, et cetera. They keep making copies of themselves, and if they have damage, unfortunately, they replicate the damage too, and It gets worse and worse and worse. So we didn't decide on this call to like start a company. We wanted to find a company that would do this for us. We figured this must exist already. And so we spent weeks looking for a company to literally take out our bone marrow and store it for us. And it didn't exist. And so I reached out to a friend of mine that I went to high school with and his family. His name is Dr. Laith Farjo. He's a wonderful orthopedic surgeon, practices in Michigan. And I said, hey, Laith, I've got a strange question. Would you take out mine and my friend's bone marrow so that we can store it in liquid nitrogen? And he sort of laughed and he said, it's really not that strange of a question. So it turns out, and this is what we didn't know at the time, that physicians all across the country and all over the world are taking out bone marrow at point of care. It's not painful. It takes like 10, 15 minutes, concentrating it, and then in a centrifuge. So you concentrate all the mononuclear cells from the bone marrow, and then they're treating areas of injury. What happens is the cells go to the area of injury. They help coordinate the healing effort. You heal faster. You can grow healthy new tissue. So these doctors are already doing all this, but no one was storing it. And so, yeah, that's when, and he said something to us. He goes, and by the way, I've had some of my patients ask me if they can store some for later. And then Mark and I were like, well, if people are asking for it, we know we want to do it. And we started talking to friends and family. Like, yeah, we would do it. So we started with one doctor in Michigan. And next thing you know, people started like flying out from San Francisco, from mostly San Francisco, actually.
I'm from the area. I'm like, I want it.
Yeah, totally. You should do it. We'll talk afterwards. But people are flying in from San Francisco to Michigan to bank. And one of them asked us to come out to their house in San Francisco and give a talk. And so we went out, we gave a talk about longevity science and stem cells. And before we knew it, we had people investing in the company and a bunch of people signing up out there. We brought on a doctor in San Francisco, and we were sort of off to the races. We had a guy named Sam Altman, who at the time, now he's the co-founder of OpenAI with Elon Musk. But at the time, he was the president of Y Combinator, which is a famous tech accelerator that has launched like Airbnb, Dropbox, Reddit, Stripe. I mean, all of these billion-dollar companies, they have your company move out to San Francisco for 3 months and they coach you heavily, and then you raise money and you grow. The idea is to grow very quickly. So we got asked to meet with Sam, and we went in and he asked us to join Y Combinator, and it was awesome. We moved out there, spent 3 months working on the business. As I mentioned, we were in Michigan and San Francisco at the time. By the time we came out of there, I think we were in like 6 or 7 states.
Amazing.
We had a small handful of people sign up for it. And by the time we were done with the program, a few hundred people had signed up, and it was growing. It was really cool. And so we went through that program, and just the best for me, it was like, as I mentioned, my grandfather's both entrepreneurs. I love entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And so just being surrounded by there was like 100 companies that went through the batch with us. Being surrounded by that much energy. Yeah. Just like people trying to solve big problems too. These are really, really smart people trying to solve really, really complex problems.
This is a personal fantasy you're describing for me. I would love to be a part of something like that. That sounds amazing. What learning must have been happening throughout that whole process?
It's so fast, so much and so fast. I always say the greatest compliment, I have 3 children. My wife and I have 3 kids. And I always say the greatest compliment I can give it is that I hope that my children have a professional and educational experience that is on par with what I had at Y Combinator. It was really, really great. And it's not done. It's kind of like once you've gone through the program, you can reach out to any of these CEOs at any other companies and get advice, and you can take office hours with really talented, smart people. And then you're part of that. So now I do that with other entrepreneurs and talk to them about Forever Labs. And most of what I try to impart on people is what not to do. We've made some mistakes along the way that I think we didn't have to if someone had, coached us. Mm-hmm. So I try now to, when I can, mentor young entrepreneurs. Most of these men and women are very, very smart. They don't need me to tell them what to do. I just try to tell them, hey, look out for this situation.
Well, for any entrepreneurs that are listening, what's a big overarching piece of advice that you give people that is just relevant that people should be thinking about?
Sure. Especially if there's like someone who has an idea sitting there waiting. My advice is don't wait. Mm-hmm. Don't over optimize. There's always, it's going to be better in a couple months when I do this, that, or the other. Don't over optimize. Don't wait for the best moment. Just go. Move fast. Find, if you can, a really strong co-founder. Mm-hmm. Running a business the ups and downs are immense. When it's high, they're really high. When it's low, it's really low. And it can be scary and it can be daunting and it can be really exciting and wonderful. And all those emotions are best had when you can share them with someone else. Mm-hmm. So, most things in life are more fun if you have someone that you can share them with, right? So if you go through and you're a solo founder, I can't imagine. It would be so hard on me. But Mark has been such a great co-founder. And we have another co-founder with us named Eddie Cyborg, and Edward is Eddie, an amazing human being as well. And just having those two guys, I just feel like we're brothers in arms. And we've gone through battle together, and we have the scars to prove it. And we have the accolades and the rewards to prove it too. Yeah. So find a strong co-founder if you can. Move fast. Don't wait. Don't over optimize. Those would be some big keys.
Yeah. Perfection is the enemy of progress, right? I love you're right. There are so many highs and so many lows when you're doing this kind of thing. It is a roller coaster. Have you found anything that's helped you navigate that roller coaster that might help others?
I mean, having a good co-founder, having, things in my life that I do to kind of center me, I guess, would be, I'm a big fan of meditation. I meditate twice a day for 20 minutes. And it's a lot of time when you're running a company. Like 20 minutes is 40 minutes a day is a big chunk of time, but it's well worth it. I have tremendous amounts of energy because of it. Mm-hmm. What other things to navigate the highs and the lows? I just think it takes this kind of, I don't want to toot my own horn at all, but I'm just saying it does take a specific type of person. Like there are some people, entrepreneurship is not for you. Like you shouldn't do it. Yeah. Right. Maybe it's not for you because it is taxing, and there's going to be I can tell you there are points in the history of our company where most other people would have probably thrown in the towel and given up and moved on. But, there's no quit in us. And because of that, we've had some success. And so I think you just don't quit. You got to have the mindset that I'm never going to quit.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. You got to love it so that you have that mindset, because that's how you got to get through. Yeah. And you're right. It isn't for everybody. And the thing is, nothing really is for everybody. It's about finding that right fit for you. And even as an entrepreneur, because I am absolutely an entrepreneur at heart, even as an entrepreneur, it is also finding that right business for you too, because I've been a part of multiple businesses, and I was actually a part of a business with family members that I got into to help out family members, but it was not a business that spoke to me. And basically when I was left holding the bag and taking care of everything, it was not a business that I really wanted to be a part of. And that's not fun either, even though I love as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. If you don't love something, it's really easy to quit. Mm-hmm. You have to love it. You have to be my grandfather on the Clausnitzer side, unfortunately passed away maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Sorry. And he had towards the end some dementia, but one of the last conversations I can remember having when he was, still with it, I told him, I called him Opa. I was like, Opa, I feel like I'm obsessed. Like all I think about is this company and running it. And he looked at me and he had a very deep voice and he said, I think that's okay. Because he himself had been, I think he was sort of self-rationalizing his own obsession with his company, but it's true. You have to be obsessed with it. In order to be obsessed with something, you have to kind of love it, right? So you should love it. If it's not an idea that I can't imagine starting a company just to make money. Like,
right. Can you imagine going through all this and hating it? Like, think about that.
Yeah.
That's painful.
Yeah. So, I mean, like,
I went through it. It is painful.
Yeah. I would never do it. And the other thing too, is like, once you make the leap to entrepreneurship, it's very hard to go back to working for somebody else. So I don't think I'm ruined for that. I'll never do that again.
I agree.
But when you love something and if it's a problem you really want to solve and that you're passionate about, you'll walk through fire to get it done.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can only imagine all the things that you've learned through this process, because there's been quite a bit that you've gone through just in the time from starting the company into now. I'm curious, what is one of the greatest lessons that you've taken away from this experience you feel has given you such a great benefit in life at this point in time?
I mean, not to hammer on a point we're already making, but just like persistence and the lesson that high activity equals high results. Like if you put in the time and the effort, the persistence, like good things will happen. The other thing is trust your instincts and your gut. There has been no shortage of times at the beginning where I felt something about someone or a situation, and something was telling me something's wrong here, and I didn't trust that instinct. I've learned to trust that now.
It's a big one, isn't it?
It is a big one, and unfortunately, I still have, and Y Combinator preached this to us, is to assume best intentions. That's still how I approach life. Like I will assume best intentions in you, but the first time. The second time, like I'm going to trust my instincts and we're going to part ways. We've been really fortunate to have a really strong group of people that work for us and with us. And that to me is the greatest compliment actually you could receive as an entrepreneur, is like the caliber of people that are willing to join you. That's awesome. That's really cool. Like we have a COO, her name's Anne Solgat, and Anne is like just such a wonderful person, but also just so smart and talented. And the fact that she could do anything, and that she's willing to work with us and be on our team is huge. And yeah, made some lifelong friendships with people that have joined our team. And that's been really cool. But the biggest thing I've learned is to trust my instincts.
Yeah, it's a big one. I'm curious, you've done a lot of different things. Before I ask you that question, let me ask you this. What is your personal definition of success?
Good question. So my personal definition of success, I don't know that I've ever written this down, but like what comes to me immediately is fulfillment, like being fulfilled. And for me to feel fulfilled, again, getting back where we're talking, I'd have to be solving a problem I want to solve that I think is worthy of my time and effort. And then I have to be making progress toward that goal. What we're doing at Forever Labs, we literally truly believe that by having access, I'm going to turn 45 in May. I have access to my 38-year-old stem cells. Every year I get older, those cells become more valuable to me.
Yeah.
The ones in my body are getting worse. Those remain unchanged, and you can grow them to hundreds of millions of cells. So eventually I'd like to do, by the time I'm 50, I'd like to start growing these cells on a schedule and reintroducing them so that I have younger bone, connective tissue, vasculature, et cetera. So for me, success is just, sometimes it's leaps forward and other times it's a little increment. And sometimes there's a few steps back, but as long as we're moving towards that goal where I can take our now thousands of clients and push the ball towards the ultimate goal, which is to be able to prophylactically, or like to be able to use these cells, not to treat disease, but to prevent it.
Yeah.
That to me is success. Like,
oh, incredible.
I feel so fulfilled every time like something like that happens. We get a little closer here. Yeah. I mean so I don't know. I think success is almost defined every day differently, but as long as I feel fulfilled in what I'm doing, and I almost always do, I think I'm a successful person. Interestingly, so like we've been fortunate to have some financial success in life, even outside of Forever Labs, from some of the previous endeavors I had before Forever Labs. That's not success. Like the old adage, like money can't buy you happiness is 100% true. So I've learned that is definitely not my definition of success. Like financial gain is not, but solving problems, creating, making things, that's when I feel the most fulfilled. So for me, that's success.
Yeah. Even when you're saying those things, it feels different in the body, when you're talking about financial success, it's like, but then you talk about creating, building, it's like this excitement comes into the body. It feels more alive.
I'm also interestingly, Mark, my co-founder, is a beautiful oil painter. He's like a really talented guy. He's a real Renaissance man. And I'm a musician, a singer-songwriter. And so I think that us both being artists and taking that side, that creative side to our business has really helped us as well. But we like to make things. Mark and I created a website before we started this company called hubski.com, which anyone can go check out.
What is it? What's the website about?
It's like Reddit, but for smart people. So, the tagline is a thoughtful web, and people go there and have like thoughtful conversations around science, technology, medicine, even religion, and like politics in a thoughtful way. It's really cool. It still runs today. But we're always trying to make things, and we do that within Forever Labs too. So we have our core product, which is to bank stem cells, and very excited. That is all of our, like the finish line is us being able to use those cells to get people to live. We've been able to get mice to live like 26% longer.
Well, here's what I'm curious about. Are people bringing in like, can you use your kids' stem cells? Like, I mean, because, I know like I banked my baby stem cells when he was born. And I know that could be used for me potentially, not my husband, but for me potentially. But is that something like, even at this stage, like your kid, could your kid's stem cells be used for you? I mean,
yeah, it's a good question. So you, first of all, good on you for doing that. Your son would never have to do Forever Labs. Like he has his best possible cells set aside. Anyone that's listening to this that is a prospective parent, like bank your kids' cells, and your child will never have to bank with Forever Labs because they'll always already have them set aside. As far as you using your child's cells, perhaps. So if you, the first ever stem cell treatment really that was approved is a bone marrow transplant. So if you have a blood cancer and you find someone, it's often a relative who's a direct match, an HLA match, you can get their bone marrow. And so what they do is they put you on these immunosuppressant drugs. They deplete you of your bone marrow and reintroduce the donor's bone marrow. And even though they're a direct match, family member, all the stuff, there's still like a 50% rejection rate. It's really high. Yeah. So what happens is your immune system essentially looks in there and says, hey, this isn't Jolie. This is someone else's cells, and they combat them as foreign, and it's really awful. And in fact, often when someone will die from one of these blood cancers, it's not the cancer, it's graft versus host that will take them because of this process. So if you can have your own cells set aside, you want that because it will not be rejected. These cells, when they're yours, so donor cells can have a positive impact. So your child's cells, let's say you had a bad elbow, tennis elbow, and you introduce your child's cells into your elbow, they can decrease inflammation, and that can be positive, but chances are they're not going to engraft, which means they won't stay there. Your immune system will get rid of them. And they won't have a chance to engraft and potentially grow healthy new tissue, which is what you want. So you want your own. And I mean, I'm looking at you right now. You're young. You should do it. So people always feel like they're too old to do it. That's the other thing. You will talk to someone who's in their 30s and they'll say, oh, if I had done it in my 20s. And then you talk to someone who's in their 40s and they're like, oh, if I'd only done it in my 30s.
I'm still younger than I will be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And I always tell people like, have you ever looked at a picture of you from 10 years ago and be like, oh my gosh, that was so awesome. Look at me. Well, biologically speaking, you probably were better off 10 years ago. If you were to take that same picture, like take a picture of yourself right now, 10 years from now, you're going to say the same thing. And in a very real way, you can take that biology and set it aside for the future with Forever Labs. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right. Well, tell me, we've talked a lot about your successes. What about a time of great difficulty? What's a time that you've had a great challenge? How did you get through it? What did you learn from it?
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. We are a venture-backed company. So we're backed by investors, and we were raising what's referred to as a Series A, a round of financing, a large round of financing. We're going to raise like $3 to $5 million to help expand the company and do all these things we wanted to do. And we have all these investors lined up, ready to do it, excited to do it and this was in like January of 2019. And all of a sudden February hits and we're like getting towards the finish line and COVID, happens. And everyone, it's even now, even though it's such recent memory, it's hard to remember how scary that was to everybody, right? COVID hits. Everyone's locked in their house, lines at the grocery store, out the window, like everything changed like that.
Yeah.
And all of these investors retracted. Every one of them was like, hey, we're not doing any new allocations. And so I'm still running a company, but I can't bring any revenue into the company because all of the clinics were closed. You could only do you couldn't do any elective procedures. You could only do emergency procedures, et cetera. So we had like 3 months of no revenue, investors backed out, and we still have to pay for all the storage and the labs and the business offices and all this stuff. And so you have this, this burn occurring financially and no revenue coming in. It was just a really, really scary time. And so what did we do? Well, I'm really proud of what we did, actually. So we had a few years prior, I'm getting chills. I'm
excited to hear this.
Well, we had a patent that we filed. And are you familiar with PRP or platelet-rich plasma? It's like
I've heard of it, and I'm vague. I'm not like a super scientist.
I'll just do like a quick overview,
give us a quick,
very fast. So like let's say you have a bad knee, you go to the doctor. Often the doctor will say, hey, Jolie, we can take your blood, we'll concentrate it in a centrifuge, take all of the platelet-rich plasma from your blood and introduce it into the knee, and it helps decrease inflammation and coordinate the healing process, et cetera. And it's being used to great effect all over the world. We filed a patent that allowed you to add a density gradient to the platelet-rich plasma that, long story short, we're able to add like hundreds of billions of these extracellular vesicles to the PRP, which are like exosomes and these other really small microvesicles. They're so small that a regular centrifuge can't grab them. In fact, when they study them, they have to use like an ultra high-speed centrifuge the size of like a washing machine, run it for 24 hours just to grab them. But we developed this little physics trick that lets you in 2 minutes, like pellet them out. It's really cool. So we patented this years ago and we were sitting on a shelf, and I was like, I should give credit to Mark here. Mark was like, well, we've got this patent sitting here. Like, all right, let's commercialize it. So we spent, much of 2019, really up until today, commercializing this patent. We call it SuperShot. You can go to supershotprp.com. If you're a physician or someone who's interested in PRP, check it out. Super proud of it though, because instead of like, we had this whole team, we could have laid them all off.
Yeah.
And we kept the team. We're like, we're going to build this product. Mm-hmm. So we built it. We got, gratitude to our government because we got the PPP loans, which really helped us keep our whole team together. I didn't have to fire anybody or let anyone go. So we retained our team. We built a whole new product line, which is now revenue facing and making money off this product. And we ended up raising around, hats off to a group called NM Future Ventures, which is the venture arm of Northwestern Mutual. They came up and led a round for us, and almost all of our existing investors ponied up and came together and supported our company. So it was a scary time, but we took lemons and made some lemonade. And I'm proud of, how we got through it. I'm most proud of the fact that we, everyone on our team stayed employed.
No, that's amazing. Well, it's incredible. Not only that, but you continued to create. You didn't stay sad. You didn't stay stagnant. You didn't get. You didn't sit there and wallow. You looked around. You figured out what you could do. You figured out how you could keep moving forward, keep working towards goals, and you did that. And you created a whole new avenue. I mean, it's wonderful, and that's what successful people do. They look for the different avenues to. Okay, I can't. This has been stopped. I can't control this.
Yeah.
So what can I control? Let's go focus there while I can.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic. So I'm curious, did you develop any, you've had a lot going on. When I think about all the different things that you've been juggling, have you developed any habits that have helped you stay on top of your game during this time?
Yeah. I don't think anything revolutionary, right? I'm a big list guy. I love to make lists every day, and it just feels good, right? And I'm an old school guy. I've got a notebook that I carry and have that all in. It's not digital, even though I know there's plenty of tools out there to do that. That meditation, I also work out now. This is a relatively new addition to my life.
Yeah, but, I noticed the now.
Now. But I see a trainer twice a week in the morning and work out, and I should probably get that up to 3 times a week. But that's been really great.
I bet that's helpful having a trainer too. Do you find that makes a big difference?
Yeah, it's huge. Off the interview before we started, I told you I'm pathologically early, right?
Yeah.
I am like that. If I feel like someone's counting on me for something, I will be there. I'm not going to call in. I don't care if I don't feel well, if I feel sick because of COVID or something like that, of course. But if I feel tired or because I was out, at dinner the night before or something, I'm still going to show up and put in the work if someone's expecting me to be there. So yeah, I think that is almost 90% of, at this point, the role of the trainer is like, I feel obligated to be there because of him. I feel like now I've been doing it long enough to where I actually don't need one in the sense that I know the exercises and stuff, but yeah, it's really nice to have. I'm very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, and that's a huge habit right there, just to be someone who always takes responsibility for what they say they're going to do. If you say you're going to be somewhere, you're going to be there, even if you're tired or what have you. So that's a pretty 100%. Big habit. Right,
and like, if you were to ask Anne on our team, she might challenge that a little bit. There's been a few times he hasn't shown up, but no, I try to always. My family
we all have a slip up here or there. Well, tell me, I'm curious. This is a little off, but I'm curious. Have you ever felt stuck in life?
Yeah.
What'd you do about it? What were you?
You just unstick yourself. So I remember that first job I had out of the restaurant. I was working at a place called Cisco selling food, and people remain nameless, but I felt very stuck. I was like, I had been rookie of the year, chairman's club, president's club, all these things you can win. I had won them, and I was like, okay, I feel like I've kind of done it. And then everyone, like older people in the company, were like, you're crazy if you're going to leave. And they're like, you should stay. Like, you have such a bright future here. And I started feeling like this pull towards that. And I was going to stay in it because I kept being like, yeah, I could be like vice president of sales. I could be all these things. And then it started feeling more like what you're describing, like stuck. Like, I'm going to be stuck here. I know it. Like, I'll just be here the rest of my career and I won't be happy. And so, yeah, I just made the leap. I went to a whole different company, in like the financial sector I had no experience in, and made a leap. And I was told very specifically by the vice president of sales that I wouldn't be successful. It was an awful thing to say. He's like, yes. You're good. This is what you know. You're not going to be successful over there. And I was like number one in the country. And like, you're always, if you're the kind of person that's just going to go out there and win and not quit, like, you're going to carry that everywhere. So don't get stuck. Move on to new things. You want to try something new, do it.
Shake it out.
No one's going to do it for you. You have to do it. Mm-hmm. So just like, unstick yourself. What's that, the old thing, or the adage, like Steve Jobs used to look in the mirror every day in the morning. And if there were too many days in a row where he felt like, I don't like what I'm doing today, he just like completely upended his life and changed things. Like, I think that's pretty cool. And there's definitely times where I'm like that. And often what it takes is for me to jump on a plane and like go somewhere else and meet with my team or Mark somewhere that isn't in the office and just get out of a routine.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think that's great advice too. Just change it up. Anything, just change it up.
Yeah, no one's going to do it for you, right?
Yeah, no one's going to do it for you. And the thing is, I mean, people, it's easy to get stuck. It's so easy to stay.
Actually, right now, think about it. Like, there's so many, can't go out, right? Like, life is very different than it used to be. It's getting more towards what it used to be, which is wonderful. But for the last 2 years, it was easy to be stuck because you were, in a lot of ways, you were physically stuck, right? Yeah. Like, you were in a building, but so many people have taken that. It's really inspiring and have been like, okay, I'm going to be stuck here. I'm turning my garage into a gym, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm going to learn how to do X, Y, and Z. I've never played the guitar before. I'm going to try that. Like, I just think there are people that get stuck, and there are people that are like, all right, this situation sucks. What can I do to make it better? I try to be that person.
Well, you know what? Everybody can be that person. Everybody can be that person. There's lots of people out there who are stuck, and they're stuck. And I just want them to know that they have every ability to be that person to get themselves out of the stuck. We all do. And it's just that sometimes, we get a little stuck. We have to be reminded.
Is susceptible to like mental health is a very real thing. And like, I'm not always as positive and awesome as I'd like to be. One of our investors, another guy that I should mention that really, like, this guy really stepped up when things were tough, is a guy named Kevin Love. He's an NBA, 5-time NBA All-Star, plays for Cleveland, just an awesome person. But he also is like one of the first pro athletes to be really open about struggling with mental health issues. And he wrote like this op-ed piece all about a panic attack he had during a basketball game. It's just really vulnerable stuff, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
I would highly recommend checking that out. Like, he has a fund called the Kevin Love Fund. It's all about raising awareness for mental health. If you feel stuck and you're watching this and you're listening to this, it happens to everyone. Like, he is literally one of the greatest And like he was there.
Yeah.
So everyone can be there. It's good luck.
We can all be there. I was there a number of years ago. I had to unstick myself as well. We all get there.
Glad you got out.
So now, as far as what's benefited you in your life, I'm curious if there's any kind of book or talk or movie, something that has really impacted you in a positive way that you think other people could benefit from as well.
Yeah, good question. Talk. Teddy Roosevelt gave a speech that's really famous called "The Man in the Arena," man or woman in the arena, to change it for modern times, because I think that is important. But it's basically about how the critic doesn't count. Someone who's sitting on the sidelines criticizing you, it's the person in the arena, mud on their face, as he says in it, like the one that's taking the bruises to try and strive for something, right? Like the man in the arena is what matters, not the critic. Just remember that no matter what you're doing out there, don't listen to the haters, go out there, go, go, go. So I love that. And I like Teddy Roosevelt a lot. So I'll transition right over to the book that I think would be great. It's called River of Doubt. It's by an author named Candace Millard, great writer, phenomenal book. And it's Teddy Roosevelt. After he loses, he tried to run again on the bull moose ticket. Like, this guy was awesome. He goes up and gives a speech in front of a crowd, gets shot point blank, bullet goes in him. He's bleeding. The only reason he didn't die is his spectacles case like stopped the bullet. He's bleeding, gives a speech for like 20 minutes and says it takes more than a bullet to kill a bull moose. And he's just like this famous, he's just a cool guy. This book chronicles him going down the Amazon, and he is charting and mapping out tributaries, I guess, off of the Amazon that were previously unmapped. And like almost everyone dies, along the way. It's just, I just can't imagine modern day leaders doing anything like that.
Fascinated. I'm so fascinated.
Posting with whatever. This is back then, people were different. And that's a great book. And the last one was movie.
Yeah. Or a movie. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Movie. I'm not sure about the movie, but I started watching a show called Severance on Apple Plus.
Oh, I just started it. That.
Remarkable. So much fun.
Fascinating topic.
Worth the time. Anyways.
Thank you. No, that was great. I'm actually really excited to go read that book.
Yeah, it's great.
So wonderful. Now, as far as for people to find you, how can they find you? How can they find more about Forever Labs? Sure.
Go to foreverlabs.com, foreverlabs.com. And there'll be like a little box that pops up to talk to a human being. It's actually a human being. So if you have any questions, go ahead, ask. We'll get back in touch with you. That's probably the best way to do it. Honestly, you can info@foreverlabs.com if you want to email us.
And I assume you're going to continue growing. I mean, this sounds like it's just growing significantly at this point.
Yeah, we're excited about it. And now people just know about us through word of mouth, et cetera. And it has sort of a life of its own, and very proud of that.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited about it. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And before you go, I'd love to ask you one final question. What are you sure of in life?
My children's love for me.
Ooh, nice. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. I'm so grateful for you joining us. I loved our talk.
Thank you, Julie.
I am fascinated with what Stephen is doing and grateful for the opportunity to learn more about this new service. I loved how right away Stephen started talking about naming the things that he was fortunate to be born into. I thought this was super powerful. For what you seek is what you see. So to begin any story with what you are grateful for, to be thinking of, aware of, and deeply appreciative for your fortunes brings even more greatness and wonder into your life. So what are you grateful for in your story? What are the fortunes that have been given to you throughout the years? Spend some time thinking about all of those boosts that you've been given along the way and give thanks and gratitude. It will only bring more into your life for you to be thankful for. Stephen Stephen shared how his grandpas were both entrepreneurs doing big things, and he grew up watching his grandparents succeed, and so he grew up believing that it could be possible for him too. Not everyone is as lucky with their family to be given an example that can help uplift them. But there are people everywhere in this world, in every occupation, who could be a shining example of opportunity to you if you go looking for them. They do not have to be your own family member. Find inspiration in the world around you. Find the people whose stories resonate with your own. Believe that if it can happen for them, it can happen for you. The people before you, living their dreams, going after their goals, they are giving you permission to do the same. And when you go out there and you start living your dreams and going after your goals, you will also give the people in your world the permission to do the same in return. Just doing you is a powerful inspiration to the world around you. Stephen's story of looking for that right work was excellent advice when you are trying to figure out what the right step is for you. Stephen would look at not only what they were doing, but he looked at how they were living their lives. And then he made choices to go after roles that aligned with how he wanted to live his own life. This is great advice when evaluating a potential new career. For Stephen, it led him to sales, where he dominated in his industry. After so many years of working in sales and working with Cisco at a very top level, Stephen started to feel stuck. He was feeling unsatisfied in life, and he was unsure of what to do about that. And that when he started to talk about doing something new, he was told that he was crazy. He was on a rocket ship for career success with his current company. He was guaranteed a successful run. Why would he jump ship? But for Stephen, that would not have been a fulfilling run. That would not have equaled actual success. As Stephen shared, it is not money or your work that makes you success, it's being fulfilled. And for Stephen, that meant working on a problem that he is passionate about. So Stephen made the leap, and even though he was told he would fail, he jumped anyway, and he made himself happy, not to mention successful with his work along the way. So if you are feeling stuck, you can do the same thing. You can unstick yourself. Use the Steve Jobs litmus test. If you wake up in the morning and you don't like what you're going to do too many days in a row, it is time to make a change. Look at the situation that is causing that stuck feeling and ask yourself, what can I do to make it better? And start there. When Stephen was presented with fascinating knowledge around stem cells, he wanted to pursue the opportunity to save stem cells for himself. When he found that there was no company that existed, he figured out a way to make it happen for himself. When he found out others were interested as well, Stephen once again decided to make the leap. He stepped into the risk. He started a new company in a new industry with a strong co-founder and an incredible passion. And what he found was the universe carrying him. He did a talk which led to meetings with investors, which led to an opportunity in the Y Combinator, and then they were off. They were building and growing and learning along the way, and they now have a wildly successful company, all because they were willing to keep seeing this exciting new idea, this exciting new thing, one step further. They did not stop themselves. If they questioned themselves, they were smart enough to see through their own imposter syndrome and keep moving forward. They embraced the possibility and they went for it. And that is what makes all the difference. Is there anything that you have stopped yourself from doing or exploring? Something that you've given yourself one excuse or another? What might your life look like if you opened yourself up to the possibility? If there is something that you are passionate about, something that you have been thinking about constantly, but if you've never tried, take Stephen's advice. Do not wait. Do not over-optimize. Do not put yourself in the prison of thinking that everything has to be perfect or perfectly aligned before you make that move or try that thing. Nothing is ever perfect. Perfection is the enemy of progress, and action the antidote to fear. So if there is something that you really love or want to do very badly, make your move. It is the areas that we truly love that we will find the greatest success. For regardless of whatever path you follow in life, there will be difficulties, there will be challenges and setbacks, but loving what you're doing, having some kind of passion or joy will be what gets you through those tough times and out the other side of success. And even if you don't do that for your work, bringing that into your life, personal life, will add to your professional success. I have seen this happen over and over again. Joy, passion, it makes all the difference. And that is my wish for us all, that in your life you will have something that you are passionate about, that fills you with joy and that lights you up inside to help you carry through any difficult times that may arise. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Please subscribe and follow us on all streaming services, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Blood Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, then please give us a like, leave a comment, and share with a friend. I hope you make today a most fulfilling day.